PodMoth.
Boosed contains adult themes and language. Listener beware. Hello, and welcome to Boosed, where we get supernatural and shit-faced. Thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Camille, and I'm joined by my co-host, English. I learned it.
Hello again, friends. Don't mind, Camille.
Just interrupt me. That's fine.
It's me,
Yeah, no,
Sydney.
it's for the best. It was for the best. How are you doing, Sydney?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice sunny Saturday, so I'm feeling good. How are you?
I am doing well. It is also it's sunny now, but it has been raining all morning, so hopefully tomorrow will be better. But having a lovely afternoon. Little odd, we are recording in the afternoon, so that's different.
Yes.
Or almost evening for me. Midday for you? What is midday? Well, I guess midday is in the middle of the day.
I mean, it's 4.
Okay.
So...
I'm at 5. So
okay, yeah. You're kind of evening.
A little evening-ish.
Yeah.
Evening light, like a brunch,
we're day boozed today.
We're day boozed, yeah. We're day drinking. Woo! Why not? It's spring. We're here. So I have a bit of a confession.
Oh boy.
I didn't do any research for today's episode.
So what does that mean? What are we?
Well, I didn't do any research because we have a guest.
What? Finally.
What? I don't know what to do with my hands for some reason. Like I feel all this like weird energy.
I've forgotten how to interact with people.
I did. It's much different when it's just you and I bullshitting with each other. Yeah, we have a guest today to tell us a story. I didn't have to research anything at the very last minute like usual. It's all been handled by the lovely Amanda. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's 2:00 where I am, so this is peak day drinking for me.
Oh, very nice. A nice brunch drink.
Yes.
We love a boozy brunch.
We do. Get some canapes. Is that what they're called? Some a charcuterie.
Oh yes, a charcuterie board. Yes.
Do it up brunch style. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for Amanda. Jesus.
You're welcome for me.
Thank you for you. We appreciate you here. We do appreciate you because
we give thanks for our guests.
We give thanks for our guests, and you are also a patron supporter, a Patreon supporter. So extra thank you to you for all of your support. And you reached out to us to be a guest, and I was so happy. I nearly cried. And so here we are. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's a Whatsits and Amanda?
Yeah, my name is Amanda Grace Waugh. I'm a librarian at the Seattle Public Library.
I am a librarian.
And I have been working somewhat in person in libraries recently, but mostly staying at home, chilling with my husband and our dog, and playing the guitar and staring longingly out the window until the world is a better place.
Everyone's favorite pastime these days.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. And I understand you also have a podcast?
I do. So I host a library podcast called The Ask Us Desk with my 2 co-hosts and friends from when I used to work in Texas, but now I'm in Washington. So it's Brittany and Gabby, and we talk about library stuff. We talk about books, and we have an Instagram at Ask Us Pod, and also Twitter, same handle at Ask Us Pod. And we are available wherever your podcatcher may be.
Awesome, amazing. And Gabby is another wonderful supporter of our show and another Patreon patron as well. So that means we are librarian approved. Our podcast is super smart, clearly, and
Very highbrow.
100% factual all the time.
Yes.
No. No, disclaimer, no. That is not true. But no, amazing. So thank you so much. And what are you drinking this evening, Amanda? Or day, this daytime, Amanda?
This daytime,
This daytime.
my day drinking. I am drinking a can of house wine, limited edition rosé bubbles. And on the back, it says that 2 cans equal 1 bottle. So this can is probably a lot of booze, especially for 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but we'll see how I do. I've opened it now, so I have to drink
There
it
you
all.
go. I'm trying to, well, I guess because every time I see a glass of wine, I've seen someone else's pour of a glass of wine. So me trying to figure out that little can is 2 glasses, I was like, those are short, those are small pours compared to what people do at home. So that kind of blew my mind that 1 can is half a glass of wine, or half a bottle of wine, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. The can is lovely, lovely rainbow. It looks delicious.
Yes, it has a donation $2 to the Human Rights Campaign for every, that's why the rainbow, I'm assuming.
Very nice. Lovely.
So I am supporting great work with my day drinking.
Yes.
You are.
It's very
Charitable.
important. Charitable and drunk are 2 favorite, our 2 favorite things around here. What have you got today, Sydney? What are you drinking? It looks like wine.
Also
Be careful with the
drinking-
glass. Careful
Okay.
with the glass.
There are no corners. I've got it securely in my hand.
Okay.
I'm also drinking rosé. I forgot what it was called. I just grabbed it before we got in, but it's pretty good. I figured, spring day drinking. It kind of matches my shirt.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A nice light blush color.
It's blush. It's lovely.
Lovely.
What are you having, Camille?
Well, I did start drinking earlier. I had lunch, a continuation of birthday festivities at lunch this morning. And at lunch, I had a mango martini, which was very delicious, very mango-y. And I am continuing the party now, a few hours later, with another of the Atlanta Hard Cider Company's Honeybee cider. So it's pretty delicious. It's weird. The people I work with up here, they're always saying, well, everyone thinks honeybee is too sweet. And I'm like, people think this is sweet? Like, what the hell is my sweet tooth doing? Like, clearly my sweet tooth is out of control, where I was like, no, this tastes normal. Everybody's like, it's too sweet. I'm like, okay. Can barely taste the honey, but I guess whatever.
It's calibrated to the Southern sweet tea standard of Texas.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. And I do not like sweet tea. So
But I always thought that the Georgia sweet tea was sweeter than the Texas sweet tea.
Oh,
I thought
well,
so.
we're gonna for the listeners to decide which is sweeter.
Yes.
hash it out in the comments. We're gonna
That
put it
will
down
really
to
be that will be a fight. That'll be an argument.
Georgia versus Texas sweet. I can't judge. I've never had Texas sweet. I hate sweet tea. I hate iced tea.
I like an Arnold Palmer every now and then.
I can't even. No, I'm good. No thanks. Give me the British version of tea, the hot tea, hot tea, a white hot tea. That's my jam. But you mentioned you're from Texas. Yes. What area of Texas are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Arlington, Texas.
Oh, shout out.
I also went to University of Texas at Arlington, which I listened to that episode where you talked about the graveyard, the weird, creepy graveyard in Arlington that I came across when I was a student there too. And it freaked me out because they're like infant gravestones that just say infant on them. And I was like, what happened here? Why is this here? Like, what is going on? but yeah, and we moved to Seattle, Washington about 6 or 7 years ago now. So we've been up here a while.
Awesome. Yeah, that it's like you see the little graveyard and like no one talks about it.
And
was
I had never, yeah.
it just says infant. That's it.
And they're numbered. There's like infant 1, infant 2.
Wow.
Like it's really creepy. And nobody knew what I was talking about. I brought it up to some of my classmates and they were like, I've never heard of this. Like you're making this up. And I almost kind of half felt like if I tried to go back and find it again, it wouldn't be there, you know?
It disappeared.
So it's very validating to hear from somebody else that it actually exists.
Yes, it does exist. It is a thing that happened. I just thought like that cemetery's been dead for 50 years. It's just like, that's why we can't see it.
Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Abigail,
We're sisters.
and we believe in ghosts.
Welcome to Supernatural Sisters, a podcast all about ghostly encounters, bone-chilling monsters, and basically anything that goes bump in the night. Each week, we talk about a haunted place, a legendary monster, or a story that sends shivers down our spines. And maybe we'll talk about the pottery scene from Ghost.
He's not a ghost in that scene. There are other parts of that movie where he's a ghost.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts.
And remember, we believe you.
Speaking of graveyards, what story have you brought us today, Amanda?
So I did some research about haunted libraries. My husband thought it was very important to bring up Ghostbusters for some reason because of the haunted library in that movie. So I have brought it up. It has been noted.
That was gonna be my first question. Are they all like the ghosts at the beginning of Ghostbusters? Yeah.
They're all very similar, maybe like to each other. I don't know if they're similar to the ghosts from Ghostbusters, but it's interesting. So I work at the Seattle Public Library, and several of our locations are allegedly haunted. So specifically, I work in West Seattle, which is kind of right now called the Accidental Island because the West Seattle Bridge is no longer operational. So it's hard to get there. You kind of have to drive all the way around to get to it. But the West Seattle branch is one of the ones that I personally work at that is allegedly haunted. People have reported lights going on and off, footsteps, a drawer opening on its own, a book in the mystery section flying off the shelf, a pair of feet under a bathroom stall, and they've spotted a tall apparition of a man who grows in size. This is two separate people. And then the only thing I have personally experienced, however, is the mysterious toilets that flush on their own. So the ghost is either trying to communicate in flushing in Morse code, or it really has to go. I'm not really sure what the story is, but
It's Moaning Myrtle. She's real. She lives in Seattle.
she lives in the West Seattle branch.
That would make
toilet.
sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's very strange because people who have worked there have their varying degrees of what they believe. So I asked some of my coworkers, and I have a quote from one of them about it. So they said, when I first started at West Seattle, I had a vivid dream that I went into the library after hours and saw someone in a hat, seemingly so tall that they were physically stuck in the entrance area where the public restrooms are. I asked if they needed help, but they didn't say anything. I just told them that the library was closed and went about my business. Later, a different coworker informed them that they had seen kind of a similar apparition, a very large figure that grew in size. And so that kind of freaks me out when two stories kind of align in a ghost story. So that person was a former custodian who no longer works for the library, who was in the building by himself, and he was in the basement, and he reported seeing that same kind of figure. So that's kind of spooky. But as far as I know, there's no legend or suspicious death associated with the West Seattle branch. It's an old Carnegie building, which Andrew Carnegie was a philanthropist in the early 1900s who built a bunch of libraries. And the West Seattle branch is one of them. We have several in our system. So it's an old building. And so that might be why people associate spooky haunted things with it. Because from all I could tell, looking through our archives, because yes, I looked through the Seattle Times and the Post-Intelligence in Seattle to find things that may have happened there in the past, but the only thing I could find was this really funny story about these burglars who tried to break in 1917, and they couldn't break in, and so they only stole the doormat.
Okay.
So that was like the only interesting thing that has happened at this branch. It's been remodeled a couple of times with different initiatives from taxpayer funding, but it doesn't have any sort of suspicious activity associated with it. There's no documented, besides what I could get from my coworkers, no documented stories of hauntings or spooky things. So I thought that was kind of disappointing, because I was really hoping that I would uncover that it was built on a spot where something had happened, or I don't know.
An ancient graveyard, of course, a burial ground, or where they used to hold like witch hangings or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something very bizarre.
Yeah, like a good old hanging tree that was dug up so that this building could be built or something.
Right, exactly. So what,
alas,
with your experiences with the flushing toilets, is that like while you're on the toilet? Because I have that problem. I have that problem with those automatic flushing toilets that are installed everywhere now. Like they don't give me enough time to like get up and pull my pants back up. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want all those germs on my body. Like, so is it like while you're there, or is it like the stall over and you're like, no one else is in here?
Yeah, so it's we're very limited working, but we're working at the branches, but we're closed. So there's like 2 people in this building, and we're not even usually in the same room or on the same floor, but you know where that other person is. And so I was, working at the desk, and then the restrooms flushed, and I was like, oh, maybe my coworker was in there, but that doesn't make sense because they're on the other side of the building, and there's another restroom down there. So I just like walked over, and there's nobody there. The toilet flushed, and there's like no reason why it would have, but it is one of those automatic flushers. So I am pretty sure that it's just malfunctioning. Like, it senses that there's something there, but why did it sense there was something there?
Exactly. I have that problem with the automatic wash, the faucets, wash handers. Oh God, what is my brain doing today? The wash handers, the automatic wash handers, the automatic hand washing machines, faucets, where I spend like your hand has to be just like so far back or front towards the sensor, and so I spend like a good like 2 seconds like, am I dead or is this broken? Am I dead or is this broken? Like, am I a ghost? Or so I fully believe it's a ghost pooping for all eternity.
It's sensing ghost butts.
It's sensing ghost butts.
Yeah.
Ghost butts.
Ghost buttsers. No, I should have left.
Almost.
I should have left that in the drafts. Everyone drink.
Yeah, so that is the West Seattle branch. So other people have reported that the Green Lake branch broiler room. I don't know the right word.
Boiler.
Broiler. That would be like when you're making broccolini or something. Okay. So the boiler room.
Can I just say how like comforting it is for like that to come from a librarian? It's not just me. I mean, I have a very elevated, rightfully so, respect and sense of deference to librarians. So it's nice to know that there are people too that say words not quite right.
Oh yeah, I think there's something in like, is it a Ramona Quimby book or something about how like she was shocked to find out the librarian didn't spell something correctly or something. We're people too, basically, is the and I misspell things, misspeak all the time. But I do love research. So also the old Central Library was a Carnegie building. So people said that that was haunted. People joked about the new library being haunted because none of the equipment ever seems to work correctly. But I seriously doubt that it is. But the most haunted place in all the library system was an old storage unit that was in the Queen Anne neighborhood. And people would report books flying off the shelves, screaming, crying, footsteps, sighs, and several people independent of each other saw a woman in a blue dress. So I had several people tell me about this. One person said that they were in there by themselves once. A book fell off the shelf and they tried to put the book back on the shelf, but it was so crammed that it was hard to put the book back on the shelf. So they were wondering how
It could have fallen. Yeah.
Could have fallen off the shelf, basically, because it was, yeah. So that place was supposed to be really haunted. Several people who work in facilities it was a storage unit, so they would put, like old tables and chairs and books that were not currently in use there. And so the facilities, a couple of facilities guys were reported to not want to go there anymore. Like they requested they didn't want to, basically set foot in the building anymore because they experienced something spooky that had happened there. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. The building that was in was torn down and condos are being built on top of it. So we'll have to wait and see once those are built and people are living there, if they experience haunted activity from this mysterious woman in the blue dress.
Ooh, that would be fun. Haunted condos. That's the new HGTV show.
Yeah.
With Chip and Joanna.
Or it reminds me of that. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Nathan For You. It's a show that was on Comedy Central about this Canadian businessman who helps people turn their small businesses around, but it's like a joke show. And one of his jokes was for a realtor to be like a haunted realtor, to like specialize in selling haunted houses, basically.
Okay, but I want that job. That sounds amazing. And over here, you'll see that the walls do ooze blood. It is every 45 minutes, so you can set your clock to it. Great little reminder. And over here, the baseboards, you can hear a heart beating, just like the Edgar Allan Poe story. So
it's a feature.
It's a feature. It's like a water feature, but it's a heartbeat. It's very relaxing. It's like a white noise machine in your floors. No problem.
Yeah, I feel like you'd be good at that.
It's like the best job ever. Where is that job? It's just like, and then I can add my true crime passion. I'm like, well, I do have to report that 18 people were murdered here. Let me tell you how.
18.
3 decapitations.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry. I got too excited
The
about
most
prospects.
cheerful, haunted realtor.
I'd be great at this. I love it. I like every once in a while I see people posting like things they found on Zillow or those real estate sites that are just bananas homes, and they look perfectly normal from the outside. But I remember my friend posted one. It's like a nice house from the outside, a little older. And they take you through the rooms, and like clearly this realtor was like, you have to put these pictures in a specific order or we'll never sell this house, right? So it's like normal room with bad wallpaper. Okay. Normal room full of mannequins that are nude. Normal room looks like the sets of the Monsters TV show. And it was just like, what is this house? Who are these people who live here? It's I would love having to sell those things. Can you just imagine like the walkthrough on that, like an open house for a home? It's like, here's some cookies. Please don't open that door. Oh,
yeah, I follow a couple of Twitter accounts. Yeah, my favorite ones are the ones that are just like, I guess, hunters gone awry, where they put all of their stuffed animal heads all over the walls in every single room. So you're like, who could you just like take those down for the photos, right? or no? Like,
it's part of the appeal.
Yeah. Who are we trying to sell this to?
Exactly. It's just like, I just want to be that person who's like, no, can I keep the animal heads? Like, is that part of the purchase? It's horrible. Horrible.
There used to be, I don't know if it still exists, but there used to be this really awesome like curiosity shop. It was this tiny little shop in Capitol Hill in Seattle that had all sorts of like animal skeletons and taxidermy things and mysterious stuff in jars and just like amulets that were like theorized to do things. It felt like going into what's that Harry Potter evil store?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
What was that? All I can think of now is the Room of Requirement, and that's not it.
Yeah. Nocturne Alley shop. That was like the spooky shop. It made me think of that, and I loved going in there, although I had to wonder like how they sustained their business. Like how much money are you making off of this? Like,
yeah.
I imagine most people just go in there to look at it and don't buy anything because they're afraid of being cursed.
Exactly.
So on that sort of same vein, I do have a haunted doll that I keep at my library, the Southwest branch, because I was too much of a chicken to take it home with me.
Valid. Mm-hmm.
So I listened to a podcast called My Brother and Me, and they have a haunted doll watch segment. And this doll was still for sale by the time their episode aired. So I purchased it because I'm a sucker, and it wasn't that expensive. And it's called Mischievous Rhea Haunted Spirit Doll, Haunted Doll Child was the listing on eBay.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, oh, that's so weird. I was like, is it Russian? Yeah.
Yeah, and so it had, the listing was wild. It doesn't exist anymore because I purchased it, so it's not on eBay anymore. But it was basically like that she loved apples. So what I did was I put this cutout of an apple and I put it next to her. So she sits above my desk at work with her like placated by her apple so that she doesn't do anything weird. But I was, thinking that at some point it could be an interesting experiment to take my haunted doll into like the basement of the West Seattle Library and be like, speak together, spirits. See what happens.
Oh, Amanda is, she's about that life.
Yeah.
Not only does she purchase the dolls, she puts it in her already haunted building she works in, and she wants them to talk to each other. All right.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
respect.
I mean,
Cheers.
I haven't done it yet, but it's like, on my list because I'm kind of like both Mulder and Scully at the same time in that I want to believe, but I have personally never had an experience where I was like, oh, that's definitely a ghost. Even the toilet flushing, I'm like, that's probably just the toilet. So it's like, I really do want to believe. So I'm like, but they never appear to me, I guess, because I'm just like too needy, too desperate.
If there's one thing we know about ghosts, they hate a needy person. It's like, no. You want it too bad, they don't give it to you. That's how it goes.
Must be. I also did some research about some other haunted libraries. So I found this book, because I'm a librarian, of course I found a book, called Tomes of Terror, Haunted Bookstores and Libraries by Mark Leslie.
Oh, perfect.
So this book exists out there. This is my library copy even. I checked it out from the library. And it talks about a couple of different haunted libraries. One that kind of stuck out to me was the Willard Library, because when I read the story, they have a ghost called the Gray Lady. But in addition to being haunted, this library really leans into it. Like most other libraries that are haunted try and be all like hush hush and like don't talk about that. But they have like really capitalized on this. Their website has a fact sheet about the ghosts. They have a ghost cam so that 24/7 you can look at the different areas that are haunted in the library and to see if you can see the Gray Lady ghost.
Ooh.
So this library was founded by local philanthropist Willard Carpenter in 1885. It's the oldest public library building in Indiana. It was left as a part of his legacy. He wanted to create a women's college, but he lost most of his fortune. So he's like, I'll just build this little library instead. And the legend of the Gray Lady didn't come about until 1937 when a custodian came in the middle of the night. It's always a custodian who comes in at the middle of the night.
Poor custodians.
So the custodian set up a fire in the furnace, and it was located in the basement because, of course. And the custodian saw this figure. He nearly bumped into this woman, and when he looked up at her, she was wearing an old-fashioned gray dress with a shawl. And as he looked at her, she seemed to fade away into the darkness. So since then, many different people, patrons and staff, have said that they've seen the Gray Lady. The longtime children's librarian, Miss Margaret Mayer, had the most experiences with the Gray Lady when she worked in the children's department, which is located in the basement where that custodian first saw the Gray Lady. So while the children's area was being remodeled, the children's librarian claims that the Gray Lady followed her home to stay with her until the renovation was complete and she could go back to the library.
Convenient.
I just like the idea of a ghost being like, you know what, all this pounding, hammering.
Can I just crash with you?
It's just too loud. It's too much.
I'm just gonna crash with you.
I'm just gonna come over. Just for the time of the renovation, like she knew. That's hilarious.
So like kind of the libraries in Seattle that I said were haunted, they have experienced things such as books falling off shelves, hearing whispers, voices, footsteps, etc. A former library director once instructed library staff to no longer tell patrons about the Gray Lady and pretend that she never existed, because I guess it's like not a good brand. I don't know. We're haunted. Since then, they've clearly done a 180 because they are super leaning into this.
All about it. Sydney will be outside protesting any day now. Just
coming to all these libraries.
And so a few days after the library director requested that they pretend as if this ghost never existed, one library staff told a patron, if there was a ghost here, she's not here anymore. And immediately a book called Betsy's Wedding fell off the shelf nearby. So she's like, she's not here anymore. And then I am too here, throws the book on the floor. So prior to the basement remodeling, there was another librarian who entered the basement restroom, locked the outer door, and then she heard faucets start to run water into the sink. And when she went out, there was nobody who could have turned on the faucets. You know, the door was locked. So that's pretty creepy. And it sounds like, from the way this is described, the faucets were turned. So it's not like an automatic faucet, like my automatic toilet flushing. So that to me is a little bit more like those faucets didn't turn themselves. So there haven't been any sightings of the Gray Lady above the basement floor, but a former custodian said that they got into another former custodian, these poor custodians, got into an elevator and pushed the button to go down, but nothing happened. He tried a few more times. Frustrated, he said aloud, "I want to go down." And then the elevator started going down. And then after that, the elevator kept going up and down all night long after he got off the elevator. So that's pretty creepy. There is one theory as to who the Gray Lady could be. It could be Willard Carpenter's daughter, Louise Carpenter. A portrait of her hangs on the first floor. People suspect it might be her because somebody commented on the picture saying she wasn't very attractive. Later, the same person felt quite unsettled during her visit to the library and told library staff that she felt like she was being watched, possibly because she had insulted the ghost.
Right. She's like, what'd you say? Who ain't cute? Oh, okay. I'll show you. That's funny. Oh, gotta love a petty ghost.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not really here anymore. Throws a book on the ground.
Right.
Oh, you think I'm ugly?
I'm gonna stare at you.
Yeah, so I love the story of this little library, the Willard Library in Indiana, and it's just so charming to me that the people who work there have fully embraced the haunted aspect of their library and actively promote it. Before the COVID times, They would have tours during Halloween and ghost tours. And like I said, they have that live video feed that anyone can watch anytime. You can go to their website right now and look at those 2 spots. There's one in the basement, and I think there's one that's sort of trained on like a rocking chair or something that apparently rocks back and forth, possibly.
It's always a rocking chair.
Yeah.
I feel like you should instate this system at your library. It might be weird, but put a camera in the bathroom to catch all the.
Put a camera on the doll that you got. Let's
Yeah,
just
put
watch
a
her.
camera. Less illegal is to put a camera on the doll. Yeah, don't take my advice. You will end up in jail. For sure.
Yeah, I could put the doll in the bathroom when no one else is in there,
Right,
and put
right.
like a little camera and see what happens.
Yeah, that would be great.
See how the ghosts interact. Maybe they'll become good friends.
I think what I meant to go for was like having a tour of the bathroom. Just be like, and here's the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
We're just gonna stand. We're gonna stand here for 10 minutes to see if the toilet flushes.
Put the doll in the bathroom.
No, yeah, I'm
let's see
100%
what
for that idea.
happens.
Yeah, I'm behind that idea 100%. Yeah, no mistake.
Ooh, yeah. That was when I bought that haunted doll. Several of my friends were like, "You're not gonna keep that doll in your house, are you?" and they're like, "We need to like use some sage to like clear out your house for you to keep that doll in your house." And I'm like, I don't know. I'll just keep it at the library.
So about the doll. Sorry about the doll. I know we're talking about libraries, but is she like do stuff? Is she supposed to do stuff? Like, did the listing say like she does things, or how is she haunted?
Yeah, so the listing I think said that she would like move stuff around and things like that, and that she, using like a Ouija board, would like communicate. You could ask her questions and she would like answer you. So I haven't attempted any of that because, like I said, chicken, and I don't want to release a demonic energy or anything, but also I kind of do. I don't know, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship.
Right now, I'm just hoping that she's happy with her little apple cutout in my cubicle.
So do your coworkers know it's a haunted doll?
I've told a few of my coworkers, and they're just like, "Oh, okay."
Like we're gonna go over there now. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, I think most of them. It's not weird that I would have a doll in my desk because I also have a lot of other random things because I'm a children's librarian. So I have, like stuffed animals, and I have, all these books and toys and things. And I have this like half-sized skeleton that I keep for decorating for Halloween displays. So I just have a bunch of like random stuff. So it's not necessarily unusual that I have that sitting there, but yeah, I don't think many of them know what it is.
Nice. I would just like start putting it on other people's desks randomly.
How did that get there?
and not saying anything. Yeah, just be like, have you seen my doll? Like, just what? Just start putting her in the stacks randomly. It's like, oh God, that would be me. That's probably why I can't be a librarian.
I would find that so charming if one of my coworkers started doing that for me. Like if they helped me believe in this myth of this haunted doll by moving it around when I wasn't around. That would be so amazing.
Yes. Love it.
So the other haunted library I wanted to talk about is the Boston Athenaeum Library. I think is how you pronounce it. Athenaeum. It was founded in 1806. It's one of the most distinguished and independent libraries and cultural institutions in the United States, according to their website.
According to them.
So
voted by us, on us.
Yeah.
We asked ourselves, and we are the best.
We agree.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Citation needed, Boston and Athenaeum Library. But in the book, Tomes of Terror, Mark Leslie references the Nathaniel Hawthorne short story because evidently he frequented that library, and he wrote about a ghost that he saw named Reverend Thaddeus Mason Harris. And he would often see Dr. Harris, as he called him, sitting in the reading room reading the Boston Post but no one else could see him. Woo! So he wrote about it in a short story called The Ghost of Dr. Harris. And he wrote it down because some lady in Liverpool, who was like a friend of his, asked him to write it down because he told it at a dinner party. He told the story and she was like, you got to write that down. So that has been published and out there, but kind of a crossover with the other book that I brought, because I was trying to figure out, like, you know, I came across this book, Dark Archives, A Librarian's Investigation into the Science and History of Books Bound in Human Skin. And it's by Megan Rosenblum, who is a librarian.
I love
and otherwise
I love Megan already. Like that title alone is amazing.
Yeah, and the cover is pretty cool. It's like a skeleton who is like in flowers. I don't know. It's
I love
spooky.
it.
So this whole book is about the I was lying earlier. Okay, so it's dozens of books. I said hundreds of books.
Yeah.
But it's just dozens. There are dozens of us,
That
just
was
like in Arrested
concerning.
Development.
Hundreds.
There are dozens of such books that still exist in famous libraries and museums, but also, like, question mark, there could be more out there, which was one of the things that she talked about in here. So the Athenaeum has one such book in its collection, and it is the narrative and life of George Walton the Highwayman, bound in his human skin. And so no one has associated these books with hauntings. I just kind of thought it was interesting that Nathaniel Hawthorne thought this library was haunted and it has a book bound with human skin. I'm like, that can't be a coincidence. So I just thought it was really spooky. This highwayman narrated his life story to the warden of his jail, which was written up into a manuscript. Upon his death, according to Walton's wishes, his friend John Fino had a physician take skin from his back to a tanner to create the leather to bind the book. And the book was bound into 2 copies, one for the physician, the weirdo who wanted it, I guess, and one for his friend, Fino, so to keep an honor and memory of him. So Fino reported to have used his copy of the book, to spank his children and to scare them into good behavior when they were young. And the book was later donated to the Athenaeum in 1864 by Finio's daughter, who was probably like, take this fucking book away from me because I have like terrible nightmares about it. So all of that to say that this book would have been in the Athenaeum's collection before Nathaniel Hawthorne was known to have visit the library. So by the time he was a frequent visitor of that library, they had a book bound in human skin, which I think just can't be a coincidence. It sort of like adds to the atmosphere of spookiness of this library, just priming it for all of these ghostly sightings and occurrences.
Right. I have
Wow.
questions. I have lots of questions. One, and you kind of touched on this. Who was this doctor who agreed? It is.
Yeah.
Who is this? And that is the world's best friend.
I was just
Okay.
about to ask you, like, are we close enough that I can ask if I can have, once you go?
Listen.
Can I get a book from your back skin?
Oh God. When you say it like that, no.
That's where it came from.
I thought
That's
you were
what you said.
Wait, no, I thought you were asking me to make sure your body got used to be bound in a book,
No,
not
I'm
the other way
asking-
around.
I'm asking about yours. No.
I mean, I love you, but
How about whoever goes first?
that's our new gentleman's agreement. Is
There we go.
whoever
Okay,
dies
okay.
first gets a book made out of their skin. Listen, if you can convince Wanda to let you use my skin for a book, have at it. I want to be a tree, so a book, a tree, it's all the same, right? In the end. It's just
Sure.
the world's best friend, but then also a complete bastard to then use this to terrorize your children.
Yeah, that part's creepy. Ree the physician, at least in Megan Rosenblum's book, she didn't find the name of the physician. So the physician is unknown. Also, his copy of the book, its whereabouts are currently unknown.
It's never been found.
So the reason they know that there are two books is because it's imprinted in the book that they do have. That this book was made two copies, one for the physician and one for this guy, John Fino. So
I suddenly want to know everything about
it. I want to hear about the process of how you make a book with skin.
Well, it's like it's like the tanning process. Like when you like tan an animal hide, you like pull it and stretch it and you treat it with chemicals, I suppose, and then you just bind it to a book.
But okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your face says it all.
But this is also a thing of like, okay, so this man made a book about himself. For whom, other than his, like, what was the purpose here? Like was someone supposed to read this? Was his friend supposed to like take this on a tour on the road? Or I don't understand. And I'm glad you answered the time period because 18 something makes more sense than like 2000. So
yeah, so it's just kind of strange. I think it says in the book, you can read the full text online and you can see the book. The Athenaeum digital collection, I think, so she interviews some of the staff from the library in her book, and basically you get the gist from the people that she's interviewed that they are tired of this shit. Like they don't want to be asked about it anymore. Yeah. They don't want anyone to be, because people apparently come there like every Halloween and like people are tourists. I know this is like, you know, a cause of this show to like get ghost tourism down. So
yes.
This is definitely a problem for this book because they have people come in and ask about it all the time. So they did a digital scan of it and it's online. So I like looking at the cover, it is kind of creepy to look at, like, because it looks skin colored. I don't know, which, you know, like it would unless you dyed it a different color.
Right.
But
well, I'm going to see if we can download some photos and post it somewhere.
I'm going to be honest, you know, I have my stance on the ghost tours, but I want to see the skin book too. I don't know where I stand on that. Like that sounds...
I mean, it's a gray area, you know, it's like, is it a ghost or is it a human,
you know,
corpse?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. No one has reported any like spooky haunting like this, like that the highwayman has like appeared to them in the library or anything like that. But it's really creepy, I think, to have this book exist.
Can you check this book out? You can check it out?
No. Okay. So they so unlike a lot of their rare books, they don't even allow this book to be physically handled by anyone anymore. Oh, man. They have it in a glass display case so you can look at it. And they have this digital archive of it. But yeah, I feel like the desire to like touch it to see what it feels like is really...
gotta know.
Yeah, you gotta know.
It's like, I also can't imagine being the librarian who's someone's like, I want to check out this book. And they're like, why? And you're like, because I want to touch it. And you're like, listen, I'm a librarian. I deal with too much bullshit all day anyway. You can leave. Like, I just want to touch. Yeah. I just want to touch the skin book. Rub your face. I don't know what else to tell you. Like,
yeah, this is what it feels like.
What it feels like, you weirdo. Like, sorry, not to yuck people's yums or anything, but yeah, that's a little.
Yeah.
It's like. I don't know. I think I feel better about the bodies exhibit instead of just turning myself into a book. It seems a little more worthwhile.
I was highly disturbed by the bodies exhibit because I thought that it was going to be purely scientific. Like, here's a cutaway of a human body. This person had like lung cancer or whatever. Like, that's kind of interesting to look at. But then there were the sculptures that were like the capillaries like coming out of their wrists into like butterflies or whatever. And I'm like, why? Like, what? This is not what I wanted.
And I had the somewhat opposite effect of like, I've seen pictures of other bodies exhibits, and I'm like, why wasn't that at the one I went to? I wanted to see that weird, slightly gross thing when I paid for my ticket. Should all be the same, equal under the law. That's what I want of my body's exhibits. Sorry.
That's fair.
I was very upset. I was like, that wasn't what I got to see. A bunch of fetuses. I would have rather have seen the dissection of a penis.
Yeah. Well, I think there was also one that was like playing chess with his body parts. It was very strange because it was like very sculptural. And I wonder when they signed their bodies over, did they know that that was what was going to happen, or did they think it was going to be for science? Because
everything is science. It's
Everything
all
is
under the science umbrella.
I feel like that's the waiver that they keep intentionally vague, where it's like, we will use your body in a display type of situation.
Yeah, we're gonna have you miming with your capillaries out.
How do you feel about berets while living?
We'll use your spleen as a beret.
Oh God.
Oh man, because that's what it was. It was like their body parts being used as like props and
I'll do that.
It was awesome. What happened to that? They should bring that back in a big way. That was a huge thing in the early 2000s. Bring that back. The bodies exhibit.
So those were the two other libraries that I brought to the table. Thus ends my my library research, although I will also recommend The Haunting of the Peoria Public Library, which is a library in Illinois. There's a American Libraries magazine has a podcast called Dewey Decibel, and they did an in-depth study of that library. So I figured it would just be better to point people in that direction, because they like went and they interviewed people and did like live recordings and stuff. So it's a pretty cool section there. But I was like, man, Indiana, Illinois, like there were so many from the book too, is set in those states. And I'm like, what's going on up there? Why are your libraries haunted?
Yeah. What happens in Illinois? I don't know anything about it. It's a lot
People die.
It's a lot of tribe. I would assume tribal land. Aren't there buffalo in Illinois? No? Am I making stuff up? Am I dumb?
I feel like you know more about Illinois than I do, because all I know is Indiana. I think Pawnee, Indiana from Parks and Rec. And I'm like, that's all I got from that area.
Yeah. No,
and that Chicago is
in Illinois. Right. No, that's the extent of my knowledge as well. So we're on the same page.
Where did you say it was in Indiana? What was the city?
So this one was in Illinois. It's Peoria Public Library.
Yeah.
And the other one that I mentioned was from Indiana. That one was the Willard Library.
Okay.
Why do you have some Indiana insider knowledge?
I know. I think isn't Michael Jackson from one of those cities? I think so.
Isn't he from he's from Indiana.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what he has to do with ghosts, but okay.
Nothing. I was just thinking about, that's the only thing I know about Indiana.
Just one of the many times I randomly think about Michael Jackson.
He could be a ghost in Indiana. You don't know.
That is true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Very true. He was a very haunted person. We won't get into that at all. Moving on. Awesome. Well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Was that it?
Yep, those were my stories. That most of the haunting library stories, I came across a bunch more from the book and online. They're all kind of similar. There's like footsteps, there's whispers, there's books flying off the shelves, and there's a figure, usually a woman in old-timey clothes. So sometimes there's a rocking chair involved. Sometimes there's toilets that flush by themselves. I mean, it's all kind of in the similar vein. But nothing that had a story that really stuck out with me. I will kind of like maybe end on a quote from like a library in Mexico that was a university library that was haunted. I read in an interview something to the effect of one of the library staff saying that like libraries are like prime for haunting because of all of the stories that they hold and all the lives that they talk about, especially when you have a library that has old books that are about really hard times, like the Spanish Inquisition and things like that this particular library had, that it just makes sense that you would have a haunted feeling, like an atmosphere, because, you know, there's all these stories about all these people who used to live and their lives, and it haunts us even still today, all the horrible things that used to happen and still happen.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. No, and that actually touches on a point that I was going to ask you about, because I was wondering, what would it be about a library? Because we hear about spirits haunting places where there's a lot of emotional energy, like hospitals or theaters, or, you know, different entertainment, or just anything where emotions are high. So I didn't know what correlation a library might have to that theory. But that does make sense. You have books that are, writers pour themselves into these things a lot of time. And then you have, especially in a library, you have multiple people coming in and touching and taking home and reading for different reasons. And all of this energy is just kind of like bound up and soaked into these pages. So that makes sense that it would be kind of like this lesser known hub of energy. Just like I would never think of a library as having that kind of energy, but that's really,
I mean, especially
really
when
good.
you have a book with someone's actual skin
There is
on
that
the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, so we do excuse me. I'm trying to think. It's like it's been so long. What do we do with guests? We do typically ask. You mentioned that you're a little bit of a Scully / Mulder personality. It's so fun. I was listening to an episode of your podcast where that came up, and I can't remember. I think it was Gabby didn't understand what someone had said about Mulder and Scully, so they had no idea what show they were talking about. She's like, I've never heard that show. They're like, you haven't watched the X-Files? And she's like, no. And she's like, Scully or Mulder? She's like, oh, I heard you say something. It was, I don't know, it was a funny moment. Anyway.
Yes, it was the Exiles. She was like, I haven't heard of that.
Right, the Exile. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. Yeah. So, but given that you're a bit of a Scully and Mulder, what do you believe like a ghost to be?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I subscribe mostly to the theory that they're kind of echoes, like the idea. I was watching some sort of like cheesy ghost hunter show that took place in England, and they were talking about the Roman soldiers that haunted this one building in the basement. And it just seems sort of like the echo of some energy that is stored in a place or an object, and you're just able to connect with it and sense it or see it or feel it. And that's kind of how I think of ghosts, less like things maybe that you interact with, and more things that you can just kind of experience that are echoes of something that happened once, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And that, I think that makes sense with a lot of what we see in a lot of ghost stories, and even to like the flushing of a toilet, an experience being repeated over and over. Like this ghost repeats the same actions over and over. They don't seem to be moving forward. So that makes sense as far as like it being an echo where it's just only repeating what has already been said. Yeah, I like that. Is there a particular, you mentioned like the things that happen in some libraries are mostly like books flying off or someone being seen. What would be your preferred, apart from the toilet interactions you already have? If you were to say go down and invoke these ghosts, what would you like to happen? Are you more of a books flying off the shelves haunting? Probably not, because then you have to pick them up and resort them as a librarian, or more of the like seeing someone, or like even that full Ghostbusters where it's like she's a mean, angry person and like she comes at you.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see like a specter, like a form of a ghost. I would just love to see something really definitive, like there's a figure of a person floating and then they disappear, because I feel like you can almost explain a lot of the other things, like, oh, it's an old building with weird wiring and, crappy plumbing, whatever. But then if you actually see something like that, then it's like, this was real. I saw it, it wasn't just like my hair in my face, I could just like actually, see a defined figure. That would be really cool. I don't want it to interact with me or to, hurt me in any way. I just kind of want to witness it.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask this only because I've been watching it recently. And you might not even know what I'm talking about. Thoughts on the Doctor Who episode Silence in the Library?
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen that, I think. But that's the one where he's like, we're in a library, books are the best weapon. Is that the one?
It's the one where the shadows in the library are eating people's flesh.
The Vashta Narada. Literally the shadows that melt the flesh.
Oh, what? I don't remember that one at all. Okay, well, I gotta go back and watch that. I used to be a huge Doctor Who fan, but I stopped watching probably, before Peter Capaldi became the Doctor. I didn't watch anything of his onward. I have a lot of backlog to catch up on.
Yeah, he's not the best, so I understand that. No, it was like one of the last David. Well, it's the Donna. Yeah, so it's one of the last David Tennant episodes, and it's Donna, and it's the introduction of River Song, which is why I love it. So, But anyway, there's these little shadows in the library, and they're actually like alien creatures. And if you see two of your shadows, one of them are the alien creatures, and they're going to eat your flesh, and then you're like a walking corpse through the library.
I need to rewatch that like immediately.
I just watched it recently, which is why I thought about it. So sorry about that. Are there anything like misconceptions about librarians that like just drive you crazy?
Oh, yeah, there's a few. So a lot of people ask questions that really sort of tell on themselves, I think, where they say like, oh, why do we need the library? Everybody has the internet. Or why do we need the library when I could go and buy books, or things like that, where it's like, do you realize that there are people who don't have internet access, who don't have money to buy books? It's just sort of like confusing to me. So it's
a very privileged viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my biggest pet peeve, is the misconception that libraries are obsolete when we provide a service in this like ever widening chasm between the haves and the have-nots, and we're often called upon to do things that are outside of our scope. A lot of I'm not personally, but a lot of librarians have been trained with Narcan to like revive somebody who's OD'd and things like that. So like the services that we provide are pretty large in scope, from like helping the homeless to, literally being EMTs to, being meal sites to XYZ, wide variety of things. So the scope of just like being a book jockey where we push books on people is a very limited view of what libraries do, especially now. We often end up filling the gaps, plugging the holes in the ship that's going down because they're not investing in proper services for people. So
wow. Yeah, hadn't really thought of it that way, but that's very, very, very true, obviously. Yeah, I love that. That's so amazing. Is that I assume that's not why you got into library science, was to be reviving people who have abused narcotics, who are overdosing. So what kind of drew you to the library sciences?
Yeah, I was actually at the University of Texas at Arlington getting a
I believe that's North Texas at Arlington. No, just kidding.
Oh, no, University of North Texas at Arlington. Getting a film degree, and I did a project with the library and their teens. So they had like a teen studio where they work with teens to learn creative softwares. So I did a program with them and just really liked working with the librarian there. And so they had a job opening and I applied and I got the job because they remembered me from that project we worked on. And it is just like, I really like the people who work in libraries, like just really big-hearted people who, are often taken advantage of for their, their empathy and their ability to work long hours and things like that, which is unfortunate. But it just kind of felt like my place to be, like I was thinking about all the people that I worked with in terms of getting my degree, and how I was like, I don't super get along well with this crowd of people, this group of people. And so it's just like a life, just, you know, like, how do you want to live your life, and what do you want to be surrounded by? People who are like, who make you feel good, I guess. So that's why I went into libraries. It's kind of a vague, weird answer, but I do like reading and books, which was not always the case. I was not a reader when I was a kid. It just sort of happened when I was a teenager. But so it's kind of strange being a children's librarian and people are like, oh yeah, this children's book. And I'm like, I never read that. I didn't read books when I was that old. But it also helps me like get in with reluctant readers to be like, oh yeah, just read like Captain Underpants or something, you know, because it's like, read what makes you happy. That's my philosophy. So it's just, yeah, I think I just got into it because I enjoyed working with the people there. And it seems like a fun way to give back to my community.
Awesome. What were you going to do in film? What was your original goal?
Well, I wanted to be a television writer, like write episodes for TV shows.
Oh, nice.
But I didn't get very far down that path,
Yeah.
obviously.
What years were you at UTA?
I was there, I think, from 2009 to 2011.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We missed each other by a few years. So.
Yeah.
Wait.
I mean.
Yes. Yeah. I graduated 2007. So yeah, we were
okay.
A couple of years apart. So awesome. Well, okay. So that kind of leads, you mentioned something that kind of leads me into my next question, because I was going to ask you, because I have like my two favorite children's books.
Ooh, okay.
And I wanted to know if you'd ever heard of them. One is, I think it's, I can't remember the exact title, but it's like the Cinderella Penguin. And it's the Cinderella story, but it's told by penguin, like all the characters are penguins.
I'm gonna add this to my library holds.
I don't know if that's the exact name, but it's like Cinderella, they're all penguins. And it was like, I think the illustrations were like the best thing to me. I'm gonna Google Cinderella Penguin.
The Tender Tale of Cinderella Penguin is a animated short series, but I guess it's also a book.
Janet Perlman, Cinderella Penguin, or the Little Glass Flipper.
Oh, the Little Glass Flipper. Oh, this looks amazing. From 1995.
Is that a penguin with a broom?
Yes, she's Cinderella.
And her hair. This like curly yellow hair. Never seen a penguin with hair.
It's, again, the illustrations are probably what drew me in. It's the cutest. It's Cinderella, but there's a series I didn't know about.
But penguins.
They did the penguin and the pea.
Oh, our library doesn't have it. Oh,
darn it.
But the King County Library has it. Okay.
Yeah, that's a favorite of mine. I don't own it anymore, I don't think. And then my other one, and I tell people about this book and they think I'm crazy, but it's called Bye Bye Baby.
I don't know that one either. Bye Bye Baby.
So don't be mad. I think someone stole this from a library for me as a gift. But Bye Bye Baby.
Oh, a sad story with a happy ending? Is that
it's
the subtitle? Janet. It's not on the cover, but it's on this Amazon listing.
Yeah, no, that pretty much explains it, I guess. It's this baby who goes around asking, he's taking care of himself, doesn't have a mom or dad, and he goes around asking all these random like animals and people and creatures if they'll be his mom, and they're like, no. And then at the end, he finds like some random childless woman, and she's like, sure. And then they find like a man who's a farmer, and he's like, well, will you be my dad? And he's like, okay. And then he's like asking old man to be his grandpa. It's very random, but it's one of my favorites. Do you have any great, as a librarian, do you have any great book recommendations? Like what's your favorite genre? Or since you're a children's librarian, are there any like just spectacular children's books we should all be reading even as adults?
Oh man, yeah, this is like asking a librarian to pick favorites is like asking us to pick our favorite child. Although I will recommend this Dark Archives book.
Already on the list. Yep.
Yes, that was pretty amazing. In general, my favorite book is Parable of a Sower by Octavia Butler.
Yes.
So that duology, 2 books, those books are really good and crazy, like prophetic in unfortunate ways. And I would say as a children's book, there are so many good picture books out recently right now. There's this picture book author that I'm kind of obsessed with, named Ogi Mora, who has a couple of picture books that I love. So she wrote one called Saturday, which is about a mom and her daughter going out on a Saturday to have a special day, because Saturdays are their special day. Her mom works every other day of the week, so they get to hang out on Saturdays. But every step of the way, something bad happens, but they realize at the end that, you know, the point of it is that they're spending time together, not that they're doing X, Y, or Z. So it's really sweet. And then there's Thank You, Omu, which is about a little boy whose grandmother makes stew for everyone in the neighborhood, and they all smell the stew and they come in and they each try the stew until there's no stew left for them, and then they're sad, but then all their neighbors bring all their food over. And so it's kind of like a Stone Soup type story, almost like if the whole community pitches in and feeds each other, kind of sweet story. So yeah, I would recommend checking out her picture books. Whatever else she makes, I'm sure will be great too. I hope she keeps cranking them out.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your stories today, for joining us, for being our first guest in 2021 and our first guest in a long time.
In 87 years.
It's been 87. She's been dead for 50 years. So sorry.
That's what you're going to find out tomorrow when you're editing or whenever you start putting this together, and you're going to reach out to me for some feedback, and I'm going to be like responding as, you know, my child or something, like, oh, she died 50 years ago.
Like, what? Listen, I do not wish death on you, but that would be a dream.
That's gonna creep me out.
We talked to a ghost. Like, we talked to a ghost. Oh my God.
Yeah, it still hasn't happened yet. So
she was super corporeal too, really, like, really vivid. You know, I could see the red hair. It was great. So you have a podcast of your own. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. It's a few librarians getting together, being amazing, I assume.
Yes, it's called the Ask Us Desk. Our initial concept was that people would ask us questions, because as librarians, we like to get questions. And I really love getting the question of, what is this book from, you know, childhood, or that I read a few years ago that I can't remember the name of. It's one of my favorite things to do. But we realized that you can't really have that structure of podcast until you have a listenership. So basically what it is now is we are promoting a reading challenge. We're trying to get people to read outside their comfort zones with the hashtag Ask Us Reading Challenge year round. So we have all these different categories, these reading prompts, and we want people to fill in all the reading prompts over the course of 2021. So we've got some good stuff going on there. We have some prizes that we've given away to people who have participated. It's been awesome. And other than that, we talk about library stuff, and we talk about books that we like, and just other random life things, pop culture, etc.
Amazing. Well, is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up this evening, this day? Sorry, it's like still really,
it's still light outside.
Yeah, it's really fucking bright outside everywhere. In all of our time zones.
Yeah.
We can end on 2 of Ranganathan's laws of library science. And just remember that 2 of the 5, for every book, their reader, and every reader, their book. Keep that in mind.
That was the classiest thing we've heard on this show in a while. I will say that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, where would you like to be found? Where would you like the people to find you on the internets?
You can find me at Amanda Grace Reads on Instagram, or at Amanda Grace Hua, my last name, on Twitter. Or you can find our podcast at Ask Us Pod on either of those platforms.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much, Amanda, for joining us today. Love the stories, love the information, love the conversation, loved having a guest again. Thank you again for your Patreon support and your support online. It's such a joy, and it's deeply, deeply appreciated by us both.
Yes.
And Miss Sydney, anything else?
No, I'm very grateful for having a guest as well. It's really nice to like listen to stories from elsewhere. Not that Camille's not, she's doing a fantastic job. I just want to put that out there. Her research, even in the last minute, is very good. But this was very interesting stories, and like it's always so cool to hear about like librarians. I love that. So yeah.
Yeah, we're out here making trouble.
Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, me, for showing up.
Camille.
Thank you, Camille, for showing up. Thank you, dear listeners. You can find me at the Camille Monae. Sydney, where are you? Where would you like to be found?
At Sit and Play, pretty much everywhere. So.
Perfect. Finally made the TikTok official.
Yes,
I see.
even TikTok now at Sit and Play. So
lovely, because branding, that's what it's about. Got to make it work. You can find the podcast at Boosed Pod on all platforms as well, including TikTok. I'm trying. I don't know what to tell y'all guys. It's a thing. And don't forget, you can also find us and other shows kind of like us at PodMoth.network. That is our family of shows, our host of what's the word?
Our pod fam.
Our pod fam. Yeah,
check out the new shows.
Yeah, check out the shows. You'll hear an ad maybe at the end of the show for one of the shows, maybe at the beginning of the show. I don't know. I forgot to segue into it at some point. So we'll see where I stick it at the end. Surprise. But yeah, check them out, PodMoth, on social media as well. Thank you, dear listeners. Give Amanda's Ask Us Desk.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Give that podcast a listen, support them. We love you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Wear a goddamn mask. Get your vaccinations.
Get your vaccinations.
And then still wear a mask, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. For now.
And we will see you next time here at Boosed Pod. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
Thank you for listening to Boosed. Our theme was composed by Vincent Parish. Sound production is done by Sydney Johnson. You can find us on social media at Boosed Pod. That's BOOSED Pod. If you would like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/boostpod to make a contribution. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, get boosed.
That's having fun.